All right. Well, hello, everyone. I'm a comedian, and usually I don't talk about comedy. I just do comedy. My channel, which you could be looking at right now, or maybe it just popped up in your feed, I don't know, but I usually do comedy, stand-up comedy, sketch comedy, podcast, any type of comedy. My comedy's been going on for 37 years. I have thought about this for a long time, to talk about how comics can make money in comedy because it's tough to make money. If you're doing stand up right now, you're probably dealing with a lot of issues. If you're a 10-year comic, you're probably thinking about quitting. I mean, there's a lot of guys that think about quitting. I thought about it today. I read about it all the time. There's something going on Threads where you read a lot of stuff, the Instagram threads, where you read a lot of stuff about comics who want to get out of the business. What am I doing? I don't know where I'm at. It's a lateral move. Comedy's not easy. And I've never really thought about discussing it because I felt like that would remove me from the entertainment portion. To take a look at it from a distance and talk about it to other people without being funny. But at this point, I'm 62 years old, and I don't think it's going to affect my career. I mean, there's something in me that says, yes, it's going to affect your career, but it's not going to affect my career, okay? If I tell you about my journey in stand-up and how maybe it'll help you. Maybe this could help you. I don't know. And this will be a long series of videos if this works out. Like if this video is working out and there's enough comments and people want to know more about this, then I'll continue to do it because this is not something that I've ever done before, like I've said. So this is my very first video of being serious. Yeah. And see, that already makes me depressed as a comedian because did Richard Pryor have to do this? Did Eddie Murphy have to do this? I'm not saying I have to do this either. That's a weird thing to say, right? That I have to do this. No. Did I want to do this? I probably wanted to do this. I have this weird comedy ego, and I don't know. I think comics understand it. I know that I once heard Brian Regan say something about that he's a pure stand-up, right? That his process and I'm not going to be able to quote him perfectly, but it just made me think there's some guys that take the craft very seriously and will not show you anything else except the craft. Well, if I was Brian Regan, I probably wouldn't be doing this unless I got asked, at a conference or a trade show, because the world's different now. Now we get to talk about a lot of different things on different mediums and, long form podcasts. You get to hear this kind of stuff. So just quickly, I'm going to tell you that I've been super successful as a niche comic. And that's probably what I have to offer to the comedy world, comic stand-ups who are thinking about, what am I going to do if I don't make enough money and I got married and I have a kid, or, I'm 40 and I think I'm just going to go back to, whatever I took in college, or maybe I didn't have that. Maybe I just need now a job and some way to make money. A niche in stand-up. It works. I was thinking about this probably 5 years into doing stand-up. How do I make more money in stand-up? How do I get out of the clubs? How do I get off the road? It was not easy. I was doing 6 weeks at a time. I was living in Cleveland, Ohio at the time. And I was already in the late 80s done with that type of lifestyle. I just did not want to leave my community. And I know that's not great for a comic. And I broke myself of doing it. Look, for 37 years, 38 years, I've left my community. I've left my wife. I've left my children. I've left everything to go do stand-up. And not thinking, but doing it, there's a couple reasons why people do it. And in the beginning, my reasons were not the reasons of later. At the beginning, you're young. I was in my 20s. I actually went to college, but never really thought that I would ever use that college degree. ended up doing stand-up at college by accident because I needed something else on my resume. And someone suggested that I join the student union. Well, guess what? They hired comics, and that was my job. So I got to hire comedians at that time. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because, I don't want to make this video so long that it might, if it's not worth anything to anybody, then why do this? Let's do it slowly, because I have to keep everything in order, and I'll pull out things. If people are interested, I'll show you exactly what happened to me, on my path doing this. Because it does start at college, and it does start around 87, and I was confused. But I had seen Eddie Murphy, and I think Eddie Murphy was the one that completely, he made me upset. I was a wreck because I wanted this so bad now after seeing him. And for what reason? Multiple reasons. If I really want to be honest with you, I can tell you that it wasn't about being a stand-up. It was about, attention. It was about a lot of things that had happened to me prior to that, where I felt like a stranger with my own family, where I didn't have much of a connection with people. And I needed that, right? So how do you do that? You make people laugh. And that was one of the greatest things that had ever happened to me, was that I successfully got into the business and it was working. This is the good part. This is like a transition point. As a stand-up, one of your biggest transition points is just getting on stage. It took a long time for me. Yeah, I was in college emceeing kind of stand-up comedy shows, but not really. I was still jacking around. I was still drinking. I was still inviting my friends to get on stage, and I was probably embarrassing comics. I was just an idiot. So no, that wasn't the good part. That was me still avoiding reality, that I'm gonna get out of school now. I had been in school all my life, and I was about to face the world. I had nothing, not even a job lined up. All my friends did. I didn't know this. The reality was very harsh, and I spent 2.5 years of my life still soul searching and doing a lot of dumb things, but good things also to lead me to the path of doing stand-up. How I originally started, I heard the sprinklers, how I originally got into the stand-up comedy business. And I didn't treat it like a business. I was treating it as an escape. I was getting booked pretty quick. I did, we didn't call it open mic, it was contests at the Cleveland Comedy Club. I won the first one that I entered. I really thought that was something. That was a mistake too. It's like going to Vegas and hitting it the first time. It was a mistake to think, oh yeah, you got something. No. But this is part of the grasp of stand-up, right? You get in, there's some hooks, they get in you, and you can't take them out. You don't want to take them out. You're hoping, a lot of hope. So the good news is that I am pretty successful in stand-up, even though you've never heard about me. If you Google the construction comic, you'll see I'm all over the place because I niched into something. I found a way to make it, I'm going to say, a non-competitive business for myself, right? So how do I make money, stay in stand-up, and and be able to? That's it, right? So how do I make money and stay in stand-up? Well, my thought process was a lot of people were getting jobs that allowed them to have freedom and flexibility, right? So you're a waiter, or you work with your family that allows you to take time off, or a part-time job, or we didn't have much stay-at-home work. We didn't have many gig opportunities like Uber or DoorDash. There was nothing really like that. So how do you make money? You had to be committed to a job. Like if you took a job, they're not letting you go for a week to, where did I go? Kalamazoo for a funny business. They're not going to let you do that. They're not going to let you go work for Kenny Muller in Iowa for 2 weeks in Sioux City or Sioux Falls or wherever he booked. They're not going to let you go to Los Angeles. Just test it out to see what it's like. No, you got a job. So how do you make money and stay in the business? At that time, the most flexible jobs that I knew of were wait staff, right? A waiter, a waitress. I never did that. I ended up making money pretty quickly. I was working construction with a family business, and I started joking about the construction industry, and that was kind of 2 or 3 years later. That I shouldn't jump ahead that quick. What I was doing first was one-nighters in some clubs, for a local booker in Cleveland, and I got a lot of work. It was great. We had a lot of work, but that's how I started, and I didn't have to, worry about trying to make too much money at that time because I was single. I had very little expenses. I lived with my uncle. It was, no real worries. Not yet. And that was the hook. I got in, it started working, I started traveling, and I felt great about it. And I thought I was on my way to something. So a lot of people, they get into stand-up and they're not sure where to go with it. And I've probably counseled a lot of younger comics about different things. And number one, I always say, start your own room. Get that stage time where no one else will book you, because I did a lot of that too. But niche it out. Niche your business. I became the construction comic probably solely for a good 15 years. Just hitting any construction related gigs. And I'll tell you about those and how I got them, and how it progressed up to something even bigger, and how I never have to really worry about money again. I don't think I have to worry about money again unless I do something really stupid. And that's an anxietal response, me telling you that, yes, I'm probably okay, but let's not jinx it. Let's not say anything stupid, because I've done very well with private gigs, and then moving into how do you make more money doing comedy, still doing comedy, being in the world of, like, let's say general speaking also, but using your comedy to make money. Because if you can do that, if you can stay in the lane of speaking, but being funny, then you can make money almost anywhere. Now, that secondary part is I want to still do stand-up for the general mass. I want to do mainstream stand-up comedy, meaning I want to do clubs. I want to be with the other comics. I don't want to be isolated to a corporate gig. I want to be able to work with other comedians. Okay? You can do that, but there's where the discipline comes, because when you start making money doing stand-up in a corporate setting, let's just say it happens to cruise ship comics. There's been a lot of cruise ship comics that I've seen. They get the gig, it sounds great. You're on a cruise ship, they show you the pictures, the brochure, the pool, the food, I don't know them. I've never taken it because I was concerned about the hook, that they would get in me and I would never see land again. Because I don't think I've seen a lot of the guys that I knew that got on those cruise ships. And it's very tough to come off and try to go get a $150 show and then work your way into the circuits of one-nighters. And then it's hard, even when you're doing it, let alone taking some time off and going out to cruise ships. So yeah, I'm sure there's been a lot of guys that have been very successful in that niche, but that's not what I'm talking about. See, for me, that would be a disaster. I don't want to be away that long. I'm a person that really does enjoy not traveling. For a comic who traveled his entire life, I'm somebody who actually found ways of staying back as much as I could. Now, this might not be for you. And I'm not saying that's what you have to do, because again, out of 365 days, my busiest times, I was gone at least half the year, and I had kids and I had a wife. I tried to cut back during those times as much as I could. But my peak years, yes, I was booked all the time, and it was a lot of driving, and then it was a lot of flying. But there are ways to niche the stand-up comedy business out. There are ways. So this is just an intro. I know it's 15 minutes. I didn't give you any information. But if this is something that you're interested in, whether you're a comedian or whether you're a business owner that has a pizza place or a tire joint or a computer, the niche, right? Discovering what your niche is in your business for sure is a way to separate yourself from the competition. And that's really what this is about. I hate to say it. If there's only one comic in the world, and that was me, I'd get all the gigs. I mean, it's logical, right? It makes sense. If there's only one pizza place, that pizza place wins. But there's not one comic. I've tried to run those numbers. How many comedians exist just in Florida? Nobody knows. All I know is I keep seeing funny people sprout up all the time. And now with the internet, there is a world of competition in trying to get the gig, then the money, and then the sustainment of that over time is so difficult. So you have to figure out, how can I separate myself from a good chunk of these people, and have a life, make money, maybe get married, maybe have children, buy a house, all these things while still doing stand-up, using stand-up. And this is the key, right? If you have any problems with using your stand-up for something else, which I don't think people do, I know some people get called a sellout. Well, I'm not going to do that because that's selling out. Everybody does. Everybody has sold something out, whether it's the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Michael Jackson, the biggest names that you've ever heard of, and those are my names because I'm older. Everybody does it. You get an offer to do a game show. It's not a comedy gig, but they want you to do a Wheel of Fortune thing with a funny flair. There's a lot of bookers doing that now. There's roast battles. There's all kinds of different things now that are not pure stand-up. So, and I think I don't want to limit this just to stand-up. This is entertainment, but this is also business. I've been very good at being a businessman and an entertainer. And if you're interested, drop me a comment. Let me know that you want to hear more of this content, and I will definitely start working on this. Thanks.